Okay, so welcome to this first catch-up. My name's Craig Waters and I've got a pretty cool guest who I'm going to talk to today. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Craig. I am Scott Drummonds. I work for EMC. I lead our VMware Focus team there and our mid-range storage specialist team. I've been with EMC for about 2.5 years here in Asia. I came out here from VMware, where I led the performance marketing team for almost 4 years.
Thanks, Scott. I think that's a good introduction, yeah? So I just want to crack on with some of the questions. I gave Scott a few questions beforehand, and we're just going to roll through those now. So, first of all, I was really keen, I know you've been to vForum before in Sydney, and I was really keen to get your impressions on, past events and really get an understanding for, why you're here today and tomorrow and what you hope to get out of it, sort of thing. Yeah?
Okay.
So,
the easy answer for me is I never miss vForum in Sydney. I was thinking about this, and I believe it's my 5th year coming here. For many years, this was the biggest virtualization event in all of Asia. Now, I should say, recently the Japanese are catching up with a pretty monstrous vForum themselves. Yeah. But this still remains kind of the premier area where we can come and talk about the newest leading-edge projects. You hear year in and year out how Australia, New Zealand is the most virtualized place in the world. And if not for good competition from the Nordic countries, that would be absolutely true. So this is one of the few places where I can come and talk about the exciting products and the next year and the next 2 years and know that people are going to get their hands on them right away. You go to the more conservative markets and you simply can't talk vision because they're still not doing what VMware can deliver today. So this is a fun area for me to come and talk to customers.
Yeah, so you do find it as being like an opportunity to talk about new stuff and like direction and where things are going?
Absolutely.
Sort of thing, yeah?
When I was still at VMware, I came out to Sydney about 3 years ago and met a customer of ours. This was a week or two after vSphere had been launched, vSphere 4. And I asked him, I said, when are you planning to upgrade to vSphere 4? And he said, it's already done. And I thought, what? The whole environment, the production environment has gone to vSphere 4 1 week after its release. And he said, I did that all last weekend.
Wow.
So you don't get that kind of enthusiasm in any other region.
Cool, that's really good. That's really good. So, hey, look, another question there for you now is just around VMworld. As a VMworld leader, I had my first chance to attend VMworld this year, VMworld US, and it was, it's an amazing time.
Yeah, awesome.
Just for you, like, what single piece of tech have you been passionate about that's been really presented at VMworld this year?
Well, it's very difficult to come back from that event with one technology that you would love with. Yeah. But I'll tell, maybe not the newest technology, but the one I get more and more impressed with is vCenter Operations. I'm embarrassed to say that when I still worked for VMware, and I was talking to one of my bosses about future directions for things I would look at in the performance space, he said to me, the guy's name is Raghu Raghuram, right? He is the visionary of the future. He said to me 2.5, 3 years ago, he said, look into this vCenter Operations product. Of course, they weren't calling it then. They were calling it Integria and a live VM. He said, look at it. That product is something special. And I shrugged it off and went, another performance management product that's not that special. I am in love with that product now. It's amazing. It gets better and better. I just learned from Steve Herrod earlier today, the uptake here in Australia, as would be expected, for vCenter Operations is higher than any other region. So that one I'm becoming more and more impressed with. Now, to answer your specific question, the one I was really excited is finally public because in the vSpecialist org, we've been whispering about this product for about 1.5 years, is vVols, or virtual machine volumes. This really is going to revolutionize the way storage is managed. I talked to customers about this. I talked today in my talk. The whole idea that the storage industry has forced on the VMware administrator the notion of a LUN is ridiculous. And that we're forcing on them availability by the LUN, that we're forcing replication by the LUN, that we're forcing tiering policies and performance by the LUN is absolutely ridiculous. Now, if you deployed VASA, you have a more granular way of mapping VMs and services to service, but we actually want to get away from the LUNs altogether. The level of granularity of management should be the virtual machine. That more closely aligns to your business and the application, and not to something the storage administrator is telling you have to deal with. So that vVols are finally public, that they're unofficially on the roadmap, date not committed, but you can guess when you'll be seeing them. Whether those are now officially being talked about, I think is going to provide some incredible benefits to customers.
It's interesting how we're seeing, more complexity in some locations, and then that reduction in complexity in others. It's like the whole storage stack itself around like your LUN and then your data store and then your RAID groups on top of those, and do you know what I mean? So it's interesting to see some of that being squashed and being reduced in the complexity. So
we added so many levels over time to produce flexibility to our customers. Most of our customers, EMC has a long history of very faithful customers that have gone from the earliest days of just dealing with RAID groups, and we wanted to make their lives easier by adding pools and then carving these pools into LUNs, and it's a highly flexible system that customers love. But for some customers, they didn't like the complexity of that. To that, we responded with file shares from products like Isilon and simply provision pools coming from file shares and VNX to simplify things. Nonetheless, there is always a time where you have to step back and say, what would we do if we started from scratch? And I think that's VM volumes.
Yeah, no, it's a good way to do. I mean, the world's changed, like even in the last 3 years, the world's changed on how we provide, services, how we provide servers, how we provide our storage, and I think that paradigm's just keeping on moving on.
It is,
okay. So I understand, I was looking on Twitter, I understand that you actually attended the Singapore vMUG.
I did.
I'm a vMUG leader myself, so it's great to see your commitment to that, and I just wondered if you wanted to talk to us more about that commitment and your supporting of the VMware user group and what it means to you personally.
Sure. Boy, I have a lot of fun stories I'd like to tell about the vMUG. So my first introduction to a vMUG was in Denmark. Was in Copenhagen.
Wow.
I was invited out there. It was put on by, of course, it's a user group supported by VMware. There were about 60 or 70 customers that showed up. They brewed their own vMUG beer. It was actually labeled Denmark vMUG beer.
Excellent.
We had two different types. We talked virtualization all morning. We had a cookout, and then we started drinking. And it was one of the best events I've ever had. I took these pictures and sent them back to my boss, the huge number of customers there, because that justified the trip. But Denmark, if you can figure out a way to get me back for your vMUG, you know I'm interested. Now, as far as Singapore, so actually there was a vMUG-like group that was being led by a fantastic VMware SE named Ewan.
Good guy.
E1 at VMware.
Some great doco from E1, by the way.
He's incredibly helpful. E1 was leading a user group-like experience, although it wasn't technically a user group because those should be led by people other than VMware employees. So it was recently taken over by VMware and EMC customer, a guy named Benjamin Troch. Ben has launched the initial event. I think another one occurred last week, and he's got more coming. Ever since Copenhagen, and now when I'm in a city with the vMUG, I love to spend time with vMUGs because when it comes down to it, VMware is still my passion. As much as I love what EMC is doing for the industry, I love talking to VMware admins. I love hearing about what they like. I love hearing their complaints, and I love hearing about where they want us to go. And those asks best happen at the level of people that are touching the product. And as I've gotten, different responsibilities with EMC, I talk to more and more managers and business people that I also want to deliver value to. But the specific aha moment always comes from a guy that actually had a pain doing something last week. And when he shares it, that's what gives you the ideas. So I love the vMUGs. And I'll add one last comment about the vMUG leader in Singapore. Ben and I have a bet. I don't know if anyone's interested in this bet. He and I run together occasionally. We do these runs in Singapore. And we were running together about 4 months ago. And he said to me, he's Belgian. He said, I think you're going to be able to vMotion between two different hypervisors sometime in the near future.
That sounds like a good bet.
Now, he's been in a lot of different companies, and he's seen a lot of different products. He's a very smart guy. I worked at VMware, and I'm not sure that we're ever going to see, for instance, Microsoft and VMware create a common API between migrations. Not sure about that. So I bet him then. I bet him one case of fine wine from Napa, where I live, versus a case of the nicest Belgian beer he could scrounge up. We have 2 years on this bet. 1 week after we made the bet, Raghu from VMware announced the acquisition of Dynamic Ops, which is, I think, sadly for me, the first step in bringing together multiple hypervisors.
Yeah, you're right,
so the good money may be on Ben right now, but I'm standing pat and would love to know what others think. What do you think?
I think yeah. I mean, the dynamic ops, acquisitions, definitely a good, a real step towards that. The Hotel California, like the whole checking in and checking out sort of thing. So I think it's definitely in the right step there. I don't believe System Center. I think System Center at the moment doesn't actually support managing ESXi. I think there's a service pack required for it that's about to come out. So yeah, I think that's a interesting step in the right direction. I think really there. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that.
Sure.
That's a really good. Just on that note as well, like what you talked about with the vMug, I think it is important that you get that the concept that it's that really that customer, the VMware customers and obviously the ecosystem that VMware has with its partners as well, and that relationship with the customers and the integrators and the vendors as well, and that sounding board as you articulated around. Them being able to talk about their strife and their issues and giving you, an avenue where you can actually go towards trying to solve those problems and trying to look at the product and look at how you can better make that product and solve those customer problems, So, yeah, I think it's good for spotting that out. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Sure.
So, this next question's my favourite question, and I've been asking everybody this question. So, what's your opinion on the software-defined data center?
Yeah.
How does it compare to cloud? We've got these terms coming out now, and I'm really interested to know, about, VMware did a lot of work around recruiting the server virtualization. The compute's done; it's locked in there. We've got those technologies all in place. How's that going to work with the? They're talking about storage and networking now as well. How's that going to work in the in the partner ecosystem? How do you see that?
Yeah.
So a couple of questions there, mate. I'll let you.
Okay. Boy, there's a lot to say on this subject.
It's a big one.
It's a really big subject. Let me give two perspectives on what's happening with SDDC. First, we heard today here at vForum, Steve Herod talk again about something he announced at VMworld, which is that software increasingly is going to drive the control of infrastructure. Meaning that if you want to change a network, if you want to reconfigure storage, if you want to establish more compute, that should happen at the software level. And by software, I don't mean a software interface to the existing infrastructure. I mean at the place you deploy the application, it should automatically enforce those policies at storage. That's the idea. Now, let me say what EMC thinks about this. I was at a town hall about 2 weeks ago in Tokyo, and Joe Tucci was speaking to all the EMC employees. And one of them was asking about the future of EMC and VMware and how we're going to continue working together and where we're going to evolve. And Joe gave a long answer, but one of the things he said is, I have set in EMC, the software-defined data center is our mission too. So when VMware and EMC agree strategically that this is the direction, we're getting in line behind that. Now, you've heard Steve talk about what that means to VMware. It means more robust management products. It means improvement in the management of network. It means addition of storage management and storage functionality. And EMC is committed to making that happen. Even in areas where it might look like it competes with our business, we don't believe that. We think that our business will evolve. When better products become available to customers, competitors and cooperation, maybe for us, are forced to make better products or we expire. We know that we're really committed to the tight integration that's going to make us a leader in that space. And as a result, we have no fear. So we're going forward. We want you to buy vSAN. We want you to buy VSA. We want you to use vVolumes. And we want you to see how amazing we're going to provide the data plane for that. Now, specifically, what does that mean to us? Well, you've seen vVols. I talked about that earlier. Another example of something we're doing in the software-defined data center is imagine all the specialized hardware today. We choose one of our products, vPlex. People love vPlex as a federation, active federation of storage over now up to 200 kilometers.
It's a good one.
What if we said the vPlex hardware is specialized, and instead of doing that, we could do that in software and provide function like that inside software? That is something that Pat Gelsinger, when he was still our president before he moved to VMware, committed to doing. And we're following through on that. So all these very, very specialized things that are high performance, we're still going to be delivering them. They're still going to be highly available. They're still going to be the highest performance weight to get this functionality. But if you want to test it, if you want it for a smaller environment, you should have the option of running that all in software. we want to make that happen with our products too.
I think that's a great point. And at the end of the day, there's still a requirement for some hardware. You know, like we're not going to get away from a hardware. You know, we still need that infrastructure. You know, at the end of the day. So.
Well, the big one that always comes up to us is with vSAN. People say, well, okay, I'm done with shared storage, right? I can just buy a bunch of x86 servers and attach disks to them. You know, I would turn that around in another way. When last year we demonstrated that you could run virtual machines inside EMC storage, because we all have x86 processors.
That's right,
some of our customers said, oh, does this mean I don't need to buy servers anymore? My answer was, in terms of what servers do, they are the most cost-effective way to provide compute, right? They're simply managed, they're commodity, they're replaceable, they're very, very affordable. It's a very competitive market. That's the best place for compute. I still believe for years and years to come, existing arrays, shared storage is going to be the best place for storage. There's going to be a use case for vSAN, particularly for small environments that we like. It's unlikely that people are going to throw out their 1 petabyte storage environments for a bunch of HP servers.
It's never going to be a one-size-fits-all, is it? I mean, there's always going to be different requirements and different situations that are going to require different solutions. It's always going to be the way.
Correct.
So, yeah, cool. That was great, Scott. Thanks for that.
Sure.
That, Look, next question was really about. I've been working on the vCap accreditation for VMware at the moment, and a lot of that's about having a home lab. I really wanted to know, have you got a home lab, Scott?
I do.
And
yes.
Do you get your hands on the tools?
Yes, not as much as I would like to. So I'm lucky as an EMCer. I have a lot of options for getting my hands on tools. Increasingly, it's easier and easier for us to use vLabs, as we call them, which are based on the same infrastructure that's run at the VMworld Labs. So we have internally on our vLabs now I think about 50 or 60 lab instances that cover all of our products. If we wanted to do Isilon or vMax or vPlex, Avamar, Networker, we can do those. We also have VMware's products. If we wanted to do vSphere, vCenter Operations, those are all built in as well. Or our new VNX plugin. Nonetheless, there's always a place for having some hardware you can get my warm, hot, sweaty hands on. So I went through 3 iterations of this. One was using my iMac and Fusion at home. And I quickly ran into the oppressive limit of a single spinning disk. And realized you can't do anything with that, right? I mean, if you want to wait 30 minutes for vCenter boot up, it's okay, but you don't want to. My next iteration was my really blown out, pimped out MacBook Pro, which has solid state and more memory, actually. Even that ran into limits. Thanks again to Singapore VMUG leader Ben Troch. I now have a nice server that he sent me with 64 gigs of RAM, 8 cores, and it came preloaded with ESXi. Thank you, Ben. And I'm working on an iOmega PX4, 4-disc in fully striped mode to try to get the most performance out of those spinning disks. What I do the most of is really basic stuff. Someone asked me a question about what happens with a new plugin, what does the interface look like, and I want a screenshot. Really basic things. I don't have, for instance, SRM built out in my home.
Sure.
I need to do that.
No, that'll be good. I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy who's been working here today, Alistair Cook. They're doing a thing called AutoLab. I don't know if you've ever heard of AutoLab.
No, tell me about it.
And that's kind of, we can get Alistair to come in and talk about it, but that's kind of basically a scripted build of a vSphere environment. So it includes things like Vue, SRM, those sort of things, and it's like a scripted end-to-end. You plug in some variables and pretty much it'll go off and build that whole environment for you.
That's cool.
So AutoLab, I think
AutoLab.
and that's part of the brown bag guys who
all right.
There we go. Badge there. But check those out.
Thanks to Alistair and the brown bag guys. So, my next project.
So, but I think as well, just touching on the software-defined data center with that as well, I think one of the benefits too of this, of the idea of having the configuration within the software is it's given us this capability to actually build better home labs. You know, like I know this isn't necessarily a custom use case, but particularly when we're doing training and like when we're trying to get some hands-on with the tools so that we can go out and provide, customers and internal IT shops with better training and skills sort of thing internally. It's given us the whole software-defined data center has given us that capability where it doesn't matter what piece of hardware we're using on the outside, all the smart's actually within the software. So I think, it's another good use case, another one to put on the list there. Yeah, so look, the last question I wanted to talk to you about was the virtual storage appliance. We kind of touched on it there before. I know you guys have internal versions of it, and I was just wondering, do you think EMC will ever be offering like a VSA as for production use? You know, like I know Nick Weaver did a really good job of the Uber Solera, you know, but you know, it's more for a home lab situation. What do you see? You know, can you comment on
Sure.
on where you see that technology going? Or?
Yeah, first, you're right. Nick Weaver, once a V specialist, always a V specialist. Now works for the office of the CTO.
Yeah,
we miss him, but we're happy he's on to that incredible job. Took the wildly complex Solera VSA and nerded out on it for a weekend and turned it into something you could set up for a minute or two. It's available online. So if you haven't played with it, give it a try. Uber Solera VSA, Google that, you'll find it. We use that extensively for internal labs. It's used by a lot of our customers and partners for testing. Internally, we also have a VSA of Isilon, which I carry around as a demo I give on my laptop all the time. And as you heard in our talks, both Chad's at VMworld, Pat Gelsinger's at EMC World, and mine today, is every one of our products will be in a VSA. Now, question you asked is, will we make those for production?
Well, I guess there's two questions really. There's one is the general availability of it anyways,
Yeah.
you know, if it's for a lab or whatever. And the other part is do you see it being as a production use as well? That was kind of the...
So, you know, chiefly the limit to getting those out is there's a significant amount of legal implications of wanting to release any of our software. The Solera one is out there. It's the best one to get started on.
Yeah.
Will the other ones be made available? I don't know. That's actually happening way outside of we techies, so I'm not sure. But I can answer the question about production availability. I would be very surprised if EMC ever made these available for production use, and I'll tell you why. These products are delivered to run on VMware. The one EMC family, that means EMC and VMware together already have one available in a second coming option of virtualized storage on ESX. Right? They have a VSA. They've been shipping for a year now. And Steve today talked a lot about vSync. So, you know, there's areas, very weird relationship between the companies. There's times that we compete. There's times that they will partner with our competitors, and there's times we will partner with their competitors. And that's, you know, that's just the way we do business. We try to earn their respect as a partner, and we hope they do the same for us. But at the top level, the decisions about what's good for the business make clear that VMware is the management space and we're in the infrastructure space. As long as this is something that's a software service, I would expect it to be owned in the VMware side of the family. And that's my personal opinion. That's not a commitment from an SVP,
but
that is my commitment.
That's a good point. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Sure.
So Scott, look, thanks for your time today. I appreciate you coming on to the catch up with me, and we'll see you out there sometime. So thanks very much. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you much.
Thank you, mate. Yeah. Cool.